everyone, and welcome back to New Comic Book Late Night Live. I'm your host, Captain Logan, and with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, the Curious Lo.
Hello, good evening.
Lo, we're back at midnight, and we thought we were going to be later tonight, and Lo managed to get off early today, so we're coming to you live at midnight again. Hello, everybody live. Thanks for being here. And thanks, of course, for watching this after the fact. Lo and I talked a lot last week about how this looked like a big week this week. I read quite a few books.
Me too. Yeah, I look at my pull list for next week, and it is literally 3 regular comics and then 2 that are like continuations of stuff that I'm reading. And compared to this week, that was, I think, over 10.
Yeah.
It's crazy. This week was huge.
Not a big week this coming week, so we'll get a little bit of a reprieve, but hopefully we read at least a couple of really cool things, so we'll have a fun show for you next week. As we always do now on this show, I'm going to ask folks watching live to make predictions about what Lo and I might be excited about this coming week, which will be harder than last week because it's not that big of a week, but the first person that we see who predicts something that one of us is going to say, we will give you a digital code for one of the books that I'm talking about this week, and we're gonna start right away with our countdown for our favorite 3 books that came out last week. And Lo, this was tough for me this time. There were 5 or 6 things that all could have wound up in there. I'm gonna have a couple at least runners up. Let's start with you this time because I think I went first last week. Let's find out what Lo's number 3 favorite book from last week was.
My number 3, and I even dressed up for my number 3. I am wearing a Deadpool shirt and my Spider-Gwen hoodie because my number 3 was Gwenpool number 1. I really, really enjoyed this book. I'm sure those of you watching that have gotten to know my comic taste over the last couple weeks are not surprised by this. I love just like spunky, weird, off-the-wall stuff. And this is exactly that. I love how aware she is of comics, and she keeps like making fun of stuff that's happening and all the meta stuff that's going on with her, talking about how she's a hero. And then at the end of this book, she makes a realization that honestly, I didn't expect them to go there with this sort of realization. I'm always wary of giving like spoilers in case somebody didn't read this, but
right.
It got, like a little serious for the material at least. And I was like, wow, this is more than just a silly book. Like, way to go, Gwenpool. So I really liked it. It was fun, exactly what you expect from some sort of like, Deadpool spin-off type of thing. Lots of fourth wall breaks, lots of meta stuff and craziness. Not nearly as violent as Deadpool. I don't know. I think they're trying to kind of tame it down a little bit, make it a little bit more like girly and spunky. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super fun.
Yeah, well, that's my number 3 also. It made exactly the same
We did that last week, too.
Yeah, we did. I didn't think of it that way, Lo, that it's kind of an alternative if you want Deadpool, but you don't want something quite as twisted and out there. It's out there in the fun, silly, absurd realm, of course, but it's spinning out of Howard the Duck. It's very much got those sensibilities, and Howard the Duck is not a straight-up kids book, of course, and Howard the Duck has a history of being a more adult but absurd and cartoony kind of thing. And it's just surreal to me, Lo, that we've spun out something from Howard the Duck that is probably going to be a lot more popular than that book, I imagine. I like this immensely. I like that there's a real reason for the fourth wall break stuff, that we have a version of Deadpool with the Gwenpool. And it's funny because Gwenpool's not Deadpool at all, but
no.
We're comparing her to that, and partly because, well, Gwen Stacy's selling books right now, and Deadpool's selling books right now, so might as well put those 2 things together. Sort of, kind of, although she's not Gwen Stacy. But I guess she's Deadpool in the sense that, well, she's a fourth wall breaking character, and we made her a mercenary so that we can get away with using that title. But I like that she's not a psychopath, and that, as far as I can tell, because the thing is, I didn't read the stuff in Howard the Duck, so this is my introduction to this character. And I like that it opens with, I'm not going to give you an origin. You've seen a bazillion of those. I'm sick of Uncle Ben deaths. I'm just not even going to talk about that.
Yeah.
And I get the sense that, and I feel like this is an easy pick up and read kind of book, and it gives you enough of an introduction of who this person is. But I like that she comes in, and the reason she's a mercenary and doesn't mind killing people and stuff is that for her, this is all fiction. She is a real-life, flesh and blood character that comes through the comic book, like if one of us was going to somehow step into the panels, and she is mowing people down because why not? It's a fiction. It's a romp. She's going to a theme park, and things become more real than that by the end of the issue. And while it's a over-the-top crazy comedy, you can tell that there's going to be a real dramatic through line, and that this character is already becoming more real, and I just like the world becoming more real to her, and it ought to. If she's a real person that goes into this place, I should not see her as a two-dimensional stereotypical comic book character, and so I like that a lot. One thing that I always wonder about with books like this is I get my head all twisted up with the meta stuff, and I love comic book metafiction and talking about the medium, with the medium, to the reader, and all of that. But this is supposed to be a real character that goes into a comic book that is written by a person. So, like, how much of what she is doing is supposed to be this real person? How much of it is the person, right? Like, she talks a lot about how, she's supposed to be a superhero. The book revolves around her. She should be able to do whatever she wants to, and she's not going to have any problems. She's not going to get killed. She's not going to get incarcerated. She should be able to do anything. But how much of that is because of that conceit and the fact that there are rules in a comic book universe that the good guy always wins, and how much of it is she's being written by a person? So that blows my brains, and I love that feeling. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, I didn't think I'd keep going with this. I just tried it. I'm totally going to keep reading that.
Oh, me too. I loved it. But I think it was my number one last week for most anticipated. So I was already very on board for it. And I was even surprised by how much I liked it, because I was expecting, I was expecting kind of like Gwen's sass with like Deadpool's, just craziness and fourth wall breaks, and we kind of got that, but I wasn't expecting it to be any more than that, I guess. I was just sort of expecting a fun time, and there was that extra level of like her sort of being like, oh wait, this is all kind of real now, and I can't just run around with my little sidekick and no consequences.
Yeah, I figured it would still be on the crude, twisted side. I figured that you would take kind of the weird, messed up world of the alternate Gwen Stacy universe, and you'd put a really scary but silly spin on it. That's not what this is at all.
Not at all.
It's much more on the Squirrel Girl and Howard the Duck side of things.
Yep, which I love Squirrel Girl. I'm all about her.
I like this book better so far, but that's because I guess there's a little bit of dramatic stuff that happens here and there in that book, but that's much more of a straight up comedy, and I feel like this is going to subvert that immediately.
Oh yeah, exactly. I was expecting another Squirrel Girl, which I love Squirrel Girl. There's nothing wrong with that, but I was expecting another just sort of like fun romp with sassiness. I don't know.
Yeah, I like the variety, and especially, with another comedy female character that we can transcend that and do something different with it.
Yeah, exactly. I have a question for you, just because I am slightly newer to comics.
Sure.
Is the girl who is sort of her, like, I don't know, M, I guess is what I'm going to compare her to, who's like doing her costumes and getting her like all the hits and stuff, is that a character that we've met before, or is her short-lived sidekick somebody that we've met before? Just because they seemed like people we might have met before, and I was like,
I was not familiar with either of them. I thought that was this book trying to build its own supporting cast,
which I love.
But the lady, the Asian lady who has English as a second language, could very easily, who like makes costumes and she, for anybody that hasn't read it, she gives out mercenary assignments. She very easily could come from something, and I'm just not familiar with her.
I mean, she could have come, because I haven't been reading Howard the Duck. She could have come from that, since that's where Gwenpool was sort of introduced. So could have been, but
the
world may never know.
But definitely recommending that for even folks that were not familiar with this character yet. I think it's even easier than picking up Gwen Stacy was, or picking up Spider-Gwen was.
Yeah, it was very introductory without being like dumbed down. I just think it was like a fun, and you already talked about this, but the fact that they didn't do any sort of origin story, they're just right into her character and what she's about, and we're off and running.
Well, and I feel like some of that is because it would get really strange narratively to do flashbacks in a comic about a person that's supposed to be from our world in a comic.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
let's not even go there. This is the last thing I'll say. The funniest thing to me was early on when she goes, I'll just keep thinking internal monologue in case this is a comic book that people are reading.
Yeah.
I loved that. And then she's like, let's make sure and give people enough bang for their $4.99. And of course, being kind of a Deadpool book, it has a ridiculous amount of dialogue and it takes a while to read. You do feel like you get plenty of bang, but you just always hope that stuff is funny and you're not skimming it on purpose. And I wasn't. I was very engaged. So
can I just say, since you brought up a favorite part, my favorite part is when she saw the price of her hit and she took a Sharpie out and drew dollar signs on her eyes.
And then the lady's like, I'm not gonna clean it again.
Yeah, that made me laugh.
Below, we both had the same number 3, so we are back over to you. What's your number 2 this week?
My number 2, and this might not surprise anybody, was Spider-Gwen. What are we on? Number 7, but really it was Spider-Woman number 2. Continuation of my number 3 from last week. I really liked it. I loved everything that was going on with Spider-Woman and her trying to get back to her daughter. And I like that we had Silk go off on her little adventure that we didn't really get to see. But I just really dig all 3 of these characters. And I love that they're doing a good job of keeping all 3 of their personalities very alive. Even in sort of a crowded book with 3 different main characters that you're trying to keep track of. And it seems like with next week's, is it next week? Yeah, next week's Silk is also the continuation of that. And I imagine that we'll sort of get to find out what happened on Silk's little adventure that we didn't get to see. So that'll be very interesting, which is a great hook on their part. Like, I'm all for next week because we didn't get to see what happened with Silk. So yeah. That's my 2 cents.
Can I throw out a minor quick rant?
Yes, please. Rant away.
I wish... Thanks for giving me permission. I wish there was a way, and if there is and somebody knows it, let me know. I wish there was a way on Comixology when you do your pull list. And, Lo, I don't know if your pull list system at your comic shop is through Comixology or some other way, but I wish there was a way to pull the parts of a crossover event that go between books without having to pull the books independently, because I don't read a couple of these books generally, but I'm reading this crossover event, so like I have to go to the shop this week and intentionally remember to pick up Silk and hope that they don't sell out of copies before I get there, and they probably won't, but I might forget. And so I wish there was a way to do that, because for the duration of a crossover book, as you said, it feels like Spider-Woman number 1, but it's really part whatever through different books.
Right.
And that's just my tiny little rant about that. I wish there was a way that I could pull that like it's a book for the 6-week duration that it's coming out.
Yeah, that would be nice. No, my comic shop is old school. I have paper that I write things down on.
It's oh man, the Comixology system is so much easier. And it was just nicer because like with writing it down, like I have to go to the shop like specifically with a list and remember, these are the things I've got to have and stuff, and
multiple times.
I guess it's a little bit easier with cell phones and stuff, and I can at least go in with the Comixology, but I much prefer that system. I
have a Google Doc that's a spreadsheet of all the comics that I am interested in, and it literally has every comic that I've purchased plugged into it. And then I'll keep track of what day different things are coming out, because some things I won't put on my pull list because I'm not sure if I want to get the number 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm a hyper organized person when it comes to stuff like that, though.
Oh, well, that's good. See, that's better for your sensibilities, because I'm not. I'm going to go on now to my number 2 low, and it's the big 50th anniversary issue for Silver Surfer. This is Silver Surfer number 3, written by Dan Slott with art by the Allreds. And as I've said 100,000 times with this book, that doesn't have that many issues, so I guess I haven't said it that many times. But as I've said a lot with this book, I don't know how Dan Slott is writing one of my favorite top 3-4 books coming out right now, when I don't like a lot of other stuff that he's doing, and I don't like his Spider-Man that much. This continues to be just wonderful and charming, and with this particular issue, kind of gut-wrenching. this is a really tragic, sad issue. It comes right out in the old school kind of Marvel method at the beginning and says how tragic an issue it's going to be, and it's not lying about that. We've got Silver Surfer's old wife, who he went off with Galactus to protect, as the villain of this story. And she shows up and is trying to, and she has her own herald, and she's trying, and her herald is the Thing, and has been for the last couple issues, and we've been wondering what's up with him. And she is trying to turn all societies and cultures into Zen-La culture. And so she's trying to create paradise, because their culture, they managed to wipe out famine and create, and poverty, and create the perfect world. And she wants to replace every society with their society. And the big, very classic sci-fi argument in this is it worth losing your culture and your individuality and everything that makes you you, or in order to have paradise, or is difficulty and strife necessary to better yourself? And that's what this is all about. And of course, we've seen that in 100,000 things, but it's very well handled here. Makes it kind of fresh again. And I have been loving this book all along, and I have the thing Lo has with Spider-Woman, where it's just really hard not to put it on my top every time. I think this would be a really fun and weird and interesting read on its own, and I said that with a lot of Silver Surfer books. But if this is a character you like, and if classic Marvel stuff is something that you care about, this might be an okay standalone thing to buy just by itself. You'll probably want to, it's on a cliffhanger, and it's on a crazy cliffhanger. You might want to, that could really change the major status quo stuff for Silver Surfer. So you might find yourself wanting to read the next issue, but I was not expecting this to be as big of a landmark as it felt, and it's wonderful. Now we go on to Lowe's number one.
My number one for the week, and this was also on my anticipated from last week, is Black Road number 1. And it is written by Brian Wood. Art is by Gary Brown. I don't know if anybody knows who those people are, but I'm reading it off anyway.
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
So it's an Image comic. I think that it's probably not something that a lot of people are aware of, just because the character is brand new and all that sort of stuff. It is about a Viking named Magnus, who is escorting a priest through this place called the Black Road. That's about all we know so far. We're sort of introduced to his character, and then the character that he will be traveling with, which is the adoptive daughter of that priest that he was dealing with. Very different than the stuff that I tend to put on my top 3, because I tend to lean more towards the side of silly. I really like that sort of stuff, but I am a big fantasy person. And while this isn't technically fantasy, at least not yet, I'm not sure if it will go that route. I love sort of old world, medieval type stuff. Little violent. If you're squeamish, maybe don't pick this one up, but I'm really intrigued by what's going on in this world. I love stuff that has to do with Christianity. As a religious person myself, I'm always really intrigued by that sort of stuff, which is part of the reason why I love Supernatural. Yeah, I'm really interested to see where this goes. I don't know much about where it's going. I just kind of saw the cool cover and read that it was about Vikings, and I was kind of on board at that point. So, so upon reading the book, I'm excited to see where it goes. It seems interesting. I really like the character of Magnus. It's already had some good fight scenes, so I'm all for it.
Yay, Lo bringing in some of the Image stuff that I just never get around to because I'm so mainstream.
My favorite cover is an Image book as well, and it's not.
Oh, really? Cool. I want to briefly, before I go on to my number 1, answer a question I saw in the comments. Divid22 wants to know if Silver Surfer got destroyed in the 616 universe, or if he survived. He's talking about with the Secret Wars reboot. And Silver Surfer was one of the coolest books in the last days of stuff that was going on during Secret Wars. Silver Surfer was one of the characters indeed that survived. He and his female companion, Dawn. they which just occurred to me is a really interesting name with what happened in that particular arc. Anyway, but he actually attempted to remake the universe before Doom got around to it, and so he was a little bit more pivotal to, well, not pivotal, but he was dealing directly with the destruction of that universe, and of course it makes sense with the Power Cosmic and all of that. So that's what was going on with him. My number one this week, and I'm so surprised that I ended up liking this as much as I did. I thought this would be kind of throwaway, and it ended up being my favorite thing I read this week. C-3PO.
Nice.
Here's the thing, and I mean, I read the Star Wars books. They don't always make my list. Now, I gotta say that Darth Vader came out this week. 19. I'm behind on that book, so I'm just like, I haven't been picking Star Wars and Darth Vader because I'm like 5 or 6 issues behind on both of those. I got through Vader Down, and I haven't read anything since then. Maybe I'm not quite 5 or 6. I forget. But anyway, C-3PO is a one-shot, and a lot of people reacted to this immediately when they heard about it. Like, how could you make a whole comic book about C-3PO and a whole, and I think people assumed it would be a miniseries because these have all been that so far. You know, you had the Chewbacca miniseries, and you had the Princess Leia miniseries. This is just a one shot, and it's an oversized $5 issue. It is the origin of where C-3PO got the red arm, and again, it doesn't sound like there's a story there. This is a story that would make Isaac Asimov proud. There is so much fascinating discussion about the nature of humanity through these robots and what exactly the robots are, how in Star Wars, how sentient they are, how self-aware they are, and there's a lot of really interesting, fascinating philosophical and existential discussion that often comes with science fiction robot stories, and I really like seeing that brought to Star Wars, and it seems really consistent with that world. There's a lot of question about if the robots are just programmed to do what they do, or if they develop their own personalities. And the coolest thing in it is the notion of memory that the droids get wiped in the droids being like a phantom limb. And there's a parallel between C-3PO losing his arm and C-3PO losing memories. And there's this distinction between the kind of memory that you have if you're a machine and the kind of memory that informs and defines people. And I could not believe how much I was thinking through this book. Also, the art is absolutely glorious. It's a really kind of dreadful scenario, and that's of course juxtaposed with plenty of humor because it's droids and it's C-3PO. But there's a lot of lead up like there is with the Poe Dameron book for Force Awakens, and we're dealing with Admiral Akbar getting kidnapped and C-3PO being on a mission to go get him, and everybody dies except for him and the droids, and they've got to try to go save Admiral Akbar. And I didn't expect the stakes to be like that. Yeah, this is wonderful. And I'm going to go as far as to say, if you're reading nothing in Star Wars, but you really like the old school question of humanity through robots and science fiction, read this. It's fantastic. This is by, what is this, James Robinson? Check this out. C-3PO Phantom Limb. It's like, as soon as you put the word phantom in a Star Wars thing, your mind goes to a particular place, and that is not a gimmicky title in this case. There's a reason for it. Anyway, this was genius.
I figured this would be on your top 3 since you were like, "Whoa, have you read this? Here, let me give you the digital copy."
Honestly, I hadn't read it yet when I did that. Okay. I actually hadn't read it yet. I just did that because I know you read the Star Wars books, and I assumed that you were picking that up. And when you didn't, I was like, "Well, I'll give you the code so you can read it."
I've only read Chewbacca, Princess Leia, and now I'm reading Poe Dameron. Those are the only ones.
So you've only read the side stuff. You're not even reading the main stuff. Oh, you've got to read the main Star Wars.
I need to. I've been sort of wanting to pick up the trades because there's only so many things I can do in singles.
I understand, but oh god, the Vader book is so you got to read it.
Oh my gosh, I know everybody's talking about the Vader book, and it sounds awesome.
Not to make you feel bad or twist the knife. You got to read those eventually.
Whoa, read more comics.
Whoa, read the comics, whoa. All right, now we're going to go on to our cover of the week. And Lo, what was your favorite cover from this last week?
My favorite cover, and I need to just talk about the art in this book because I don't know that I've really brought this book up. It's called Limbo, number 6, which is also another Image book. It's kind of hard to describe. It's sort of violent. It's very like sci-fi-esque, and the art, and I'll just give you another kind of look at that cover. Lots of like neon mixed with very dark colors, and the way that they do like the panel spread on stuff is always really cool. Like this is one of my favorite right here, just like a full thing. I don't know. The art is just always really vibrant and gorgeous, but this cover was absolutely no exception. I quite enjoyed it, and that was my cover. Limbo number 6.
Well, that just sounds delightful, Lo.
Oh, thank you.
Why are we not drinking wine on this show? That needs to happen. We should do that. We should act like the most pretentious, highbrow literary critics on this show. And
no sponsor with my Code Red Mountain Dew.
When I have my cherry Pepsi, they
so classy.
Obviously, Pepsi has endorsed this show. I get questions about that every now and again. People are like, did Mountain Dew pay you for Spawn Year? Was that a thing? My cover for this week, Lo, and I'm partly picking this because I was surprised by how long I stared at it and had a really amusing mental picture. But it is a good cover. This is the cover for Batman Ninja Turtles number 5. This book is just getting more fun and more outlandish every issue. I'm going to be really sad to see it over next issue. We've got the Shredder standing on top of the Arkham Asylum sign with all of the Arkham inmates underneath it, and there is a fantastic cliffhanger at the end of this with the Arkham inmates. I don't want to tell you what happens, but if you think Ninja Turtles crossing with Batman, if there's like particular things you'd want to see, they do a thing with them that is exactly what you would hope would happen. Anyway, I'm partly picking this cover, besides the fact that it just, you get to see all the Arkham inmates on the cover and with Shredder looming over them. Here's a thing you never thought you'd get to see. But check this out. Shredder is not as smart on this cover as his foot soldiers, because they're at least crouching down and holding the sign so they don't fall down. All you need is a slight gust of wind, and that's going to be really embarrassing if you're the Shredder.
Awkward. Poor Shredder. I can just imagine him like, whoa, down into a sea of rogues gallery.
A sea of, I want the Shredder to be like giving this massive speech, and then he's just like, whoa! Whoa. The winds of change. Whoa! What other books did you read last week that you'd like to mention?
I have way too many to mention them all, so I have two. I know. I have 2 that I want to mention. I was very excited for Moon Knight last week. I put it in my top 3, and I don't want anybody to think that I did not like this book because I really enjoyed it. Yep, I know nothing. Right I don't really know anything about the character going in. Same. This is definitely my number 4. I was kind of sad to see it get pushed out, but I did like the other books better. Really interested in the character. Thought it was great. Looking forward. Definitely going to be continuing that. And then of course, Gotham Academy being one of my favorite books. I don't talk about it as much as Spider-Gwen, mostly just because I read all of the Spider books, so she comes up a lot. But I love Gotham Academy. This issue was great. I love the art in this. Yay, Gotham Academy. And I'm really excited that it is continuing on into the new DC stuff. So yay. Those are the 2 I wanted to mention.
Okay, well, Moon Knight, I also read it, and I know slightly more than you about Moon Knight. I've checked in with his book every now and again. The last run was wonderful. We're back to serialized long-form stuff with Moon Knight. Immediately, we know how long the new arc is going to be. We have that scenario here, if you haven't picked this up yet, I'll just mention it real quick, where you have a major character who is in an insane asylum and being told that everything that's happened in his life and all the crazy superhero stuff is actually all in his mind, and that he has a dissociative identity disorder. And you're not sure if that's true or not by the end of this. And of course it can't be, because we've seen Moon Knight do stuff. I thought it was kind of fun that, like, Moon Knight, it's sort of like Batman in Perchance to Dream in the animated series, where there is a Batman, but it's not him, and he thought he was Batman, and then there's this question of, was I never Batman? And I, like, dreamed that up, but then there's other things, so that's there. This thing is, like, it's terrifying and it's super creepy and it's an insane asylum book, and I kind of hope that Moon Knight's in the asylum like this whole first arc, because it's this really unnerving scenario, and it's exactly what you would expect Jeff Lemire to do with this, which is what I was kind of hoping for. Also, what else did I read? Like I said, Batman Ninja Turtles. I won't really say anything else about that except get it for the cliffhanger. It's a thing you've got to see it. And also, if you've ever wanted to see Michelangelo give Batman a giant bear hug, that's the book. I read the first issue of Xena Warrior Princess. This is on my list last week of things that I was excited to look at this week. Didn't love it. It's not great. The art is abysmal. I like it's under detailed, blob faces, ultra cartoony, but not in a good way. Really inconsistent, really strange facial expressions. I couldn't take it seriously. An initial premise for story is good. You've got Xena and Gabrielle going up against Caesar's army, and it's dealing with the aftermath of a lot of stuff that was happening at the end of that show, but 25 years afterwards. And it does an okay job of catching you up if you haven't watched that in a real long time. And I have a hard time buying that even giant Xena fans have watched Xena in the last year or two. So like remembering everything that happened is a thing. But it definitely in dialogue and in you know, just the where the story is going, it captures the feel of that show, but I don't like the art at all. So that's like, and I can read a good story with crappy art, but I'm not in love with the story yet, so it's not getting me through it like I'm hoping it will eventually. I also read X-Men 92. That's still fun. We've got the whole Omega Red versus Alpha Red thing going on, and I don't want to say anything else about that, but you know, super throwback. And but it's forging its own identity going ahead. They're doing vampire stuff. And I don't understand what this fascination is with vampires and X-Men, but they're doing the Jubilee as a vampire thing again. I guess it's like kind of X-Men 92 adapting a thing we did a few years ago in X-Men in a book that I didn't like at all. And we're kind of doing that again, but I only read the first couple issues of that because I didn't like it at all. So I don't know. We'll see if this can turn me around on vampires in this world of X-Men. You know, it's so crazy and silly. It's maybe okay. Spawn 262. Always my review of Spawn. The art's good. Story's kind of dumb. We've had Spawn apparently with this giant master plan of his own this time, because that's what we do with Spawn. It's all about a big master plan that you don't know has been going on until finally somebody goes, hey, there's this big master plan. All these things that were going on while we were, you know, wasting time was because of this person like willed it all to happen kind of magically. We pretend like we were actually moving pieces around. Yeah. You get to the end of this issue. I'm going to spoil this. So if you don't want to hear that, like, turn your audio off for a second once I put the cover down, you can turn the audio. At the end of this issue, the big thing is Spawn's leaving hell, and he's rescued Wanda's soul, and he's going to finally go off and be an actual hero. 262 issues in, we're finally doing that. And we've sort of kind of pretended to do that before, but there's this moment where Wanda's like I have seen Spawn's future, and he's gonna be amazing. And I'm like, it's about time. We're brushing over all those horrible, scary things he did, like abusing his wife and making her have a miscarriage by punching her in the stomach. But okay. Anyway, yeah, I'm done yelling about Spawn. Speaking of Spawn, also read Spider-Gwen. It's great. Speaking of Spawn, art is consistent from last week. I expected it to change every time. That's exciting. Or somewhat consistent.
Yeah.
Thing I was most looking forward to this week did not disappoint. As I said, Spawn, art over story, should have always been this. Spawn, the adult coloring book. This is fantastic. McFarlane has done the thing that I've been wanting to see with an adult coloring book with comics for a while, which is he makes it an actual piece. It's not you're coloring a particular book. It's he makes it a gallery of awesome Spawn art that you get to color. And I expected a lot of the art to not be McFarlane's art because Capullo did some. There's not one Capullo drawing in here. There are only 2 or 3 things that weren't penciled by McFarlane. All of them inked by him, but it's all a classic McFarlane art and more recent McFarlane art. There's a good mix of old stuff and new stuff. I bought 2. I liked it so much. I bought 1 to color and 1 to save back for my Spawn collection. And here, look, Lo, I colored Spawn.
Yay! I love coloring.
Doesn't he look great? Yeah, I don't know. It's nice and relaxing. I was watching a little TV this morning and I started coloring. Here, I'll show you another one. I also did.
That is the most like 5-year-old thing I've ever heard. I was watching TV this morning and I colored.
That's what I was doing. Yeah, well, I mean, I was taking care of kids.
I love it.
Like,
it's a good
I was coloring
thing.
alongside my kid. He was like, "I'll do Batman. You do Spawn." He goes, "We'll have a Batman Spawn crossover." and then here's my Violator.
Nice.
Yeah, so this is really fun. Another thing he's doing with this that I really like is he leaves space on the other side so that you don't have bleed through, depending on what you want to color with. I haven't seen anything else doing that either. Most of these seem like things that are really colorable. There's nothing too super inked where you're like, well, it's mostly black. What am I going to do with that? And I like that it's an adult coloring book in 2 different ways. So anyway, yeah, those were my books and a coloring book for this week.
Can I tell you, just speaking of Spawn, real quick, I have a girl that I work with who has started watching Geekvolution, which, hi Eileen, if you're watching, and her and her husband are both really into comics, and his favorite character is Spawn. And before I met him, I was like, oh, he should watch Spawn Year. And then I met him for the first time like 2 days ago, and I was like, oh, and I like recommended Spawn Year. And then like a second later, I was like, or maybe don't watch it because he actually kind of hates Spawn by the end of it. So maybe don't. He was like, yeah, I never did watch it, but I was like, oh yeah, maybe don't.
Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, of course, but I feel like that series ruined Spawn for a good majority of people. Like at the end, all I can say, and I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that really like Spawn, and they realized they hadn't read as much of it as they thought they had. And that's what happens with a lot of people, is that we love it for what we remember, and then when you really look at it, like, you don't even have to dissect it as hard as I did. You just got to read more of it, and you go, oh, we just keep retconning it over and over again. And one thing I do have to give 262, though, I didn't mention this. One thing I do have to give this is it's the end of a major arc, huge story, and he doesn't wait for a big landmark number. That's unprecedented. He likes to sit around and do 20 issues that could have been 3 or 5, just stalling out until we get to a big landmark number. And so, like, this should have been Spawn 300, but it's 262. I'm proud of him for that. That's good. All right. We're going to go ahead now and talk about books that we're excited about for this coming week. And this is probably going to be somewhat anticlimactic, given how big this week was.
I know.
But unless you saw one for you before mine, I saw Ultron 32 mention Obi-Wan and Anakin, which was my third.
I saw Ultron 32 mention Howard the Duck number 6. So
before that, okay, cool.
Either way, it's Ultron 32.
He still just gets 1 comic for that, but good job. Yeah. And the comic that we're gonna give you this week is gonna be hold on, Moon Knight. Let's go for Moon Knight number 1, because that book's awesome and you should read that. So yeah, Moon Knight number 1 is going to be your book. So send me a message after this with some way to get into contact with you, and I'll send you the code for that. Facebook, personal message, or a Geekvolution, someplace. Just make sure I get it. And now let's find out what our books we're excited for. I don't know. Sentences will happen. Hold on. Books we're excited about this week. I said Obi-Wan and Anakin, not for any reason other than I've been loving the heck out of that book and the atmosphere. I get really sucked in every time I look at that, and I love the way those 2 characters are being drawn and expounded upon, and the politics are really interesting. And that planet is fascinating. I want to see that show up in a cartoon show or a comic or something. Lo, what is your third book that you are most ecstatic to read this week?
My number 3 is Silk number 7 for the continuation of Spider-Women, just because I'm really enjoying that story and I like all 3 of those characters.
She's going to do that for the next 5 weeks, you guys.
I know. I'm sorry.
My number 2 is gonna be Lois and Clark number 7. We had a pretty cool reveal at the end of last issue about Lois and Clark's kid, and it's looking like he might start manifesting his powers pretty soon. And I'm really excited to see where that book finishes in leading into the new Superman book for Rebirth, because it's going to be informing it real hard, and that's going to be kind of their big tentpole Superman book. And it looks like that Superman, which is the post-death of Superman who comes directly out of that universe and into this universe, might actually be replacing our regular Superman, or our 52 Superman, as the Superman, which is really interesting. But he also might just be there coexisting with it, with him, because 52 Superman is dying right now in an also really interesting arc, and it looks like he might actually die. Like they might actually kill him off and replace him with this Superman. So we'll see what happens. But I'm excited to see all of that leading up to that, and it's really cool that it's not a straight up reboot thing, that all roads are leading to this, and suddenly I care about these stories more because of where we're headed for Rebirth, and it doesn't feel like a lot of them are going to get cut off real fast. That it's going to be a pretty natural and transition. So that's exciting.
Nice. All right, my number 2 is Howard the Duck number 6, which I have read nothing Howard the Duck before, but it is the continuation of the Squirrel Girl tie-in from, was it last week or the week before? I can't remember. 1 or 2 weeks ago. I'm excited. I want to see if they save the kitty that they're trying to save. I need to know if they get out of the dungeon of the evil cosplayer's house. These are all very important storylines that I need to know the end of. So Howard the Duck number 6 with Squirrel Girl.
I just love that they've got you that invested in that. That's fantastic. She is sucked in.
I love silly stuff.
My number 1, and this shit might end up being absolutely terrible. These could have all been interchangeable numbers, honestly. Not a big week this week. Star Trek Manifest Destiny number 1, IDW. It's a 4-issue miniseries that's, I guess, going to come out bi-weekly, so it's going to come out pretty fast. And it's supposed to be kind of their big 50th anniversary thing, which is part of the reason I'm putting it on my list, because I'm curious to see if it ends up broaching the Prime universe or if it just stays with Abrams' track, because it's just weird they're touting it up as a big 50th anniversary thing, but it's still Abrams' track. But it's supposed to be a big Kirk versus Klingon story, and it might be awesome. It might be terrible. I don't know. The art is by Angel Hernandez, who did the really stellar artwork for the Star Trek Green Lantern crossover that really went back to Blackest Night. I like that stuff a lot. So I'm excited about it for art, if nothing else. So yeah, there we go.
All right, and my number 1, which for a first time in this show, in all 3 weeks that we've been doing it, I am recommending no number 1 issues for next week.
Oh yeah, I guess I do it every week now. Yeah.
That's what I've been doing, but this week there's no number 1s. My number 1 is From Under Mountains number 6. I've mentioned it before, I think not on this show, but I have mentioned it other places on Geekvolution. I quite enjoy that. I know you weren't sucked in by issue number 1, but as also previously stated, I'm very into fantasy stuff, and I dig that it's a little bit more like, it's not like Eurocentric fantasy, which is kind of like the normal fantasy stuff that you get. That's like run-of-the-mill fantasy is like Eurocentric medieval type stuff, and this is more like Persian, I don't know, sort of stuff. I don't know. I quite enjoy it. So I'm excited for From Under Mountains number 6.
I mean, I read that and immediately went, oh yeah, that's a Curious Low book.
It is. It's a Curious Low book.
Well, I guess that's going to be it for us this evening. We've done our top 3 for this week. The 3 we're excited to see this coming week. We will see you again next Monday night, also at midnight. We know for sure we're going to be able to pull that off this time. So that'll be at midnight, my time, Central Time. And everybody, thanks a lot if you were here live. And thanks for watching after the fact. Will also be other things going on this week. I should mention that, and hopefully this time stays this way, and I'll post this on Facebook if it changes. But this is a this is a thing that kind of just came up. We're doing this real quick with not a lot of notice, but Eric, Steve, and I are going to be doing a live review tomorrow night at 7 Central, probably 45 minutes to an hour, on the comic book Civil War. So tune in for that if you were around. We're going to go ahead and broadcast that live. And then we'll be doing another live show, of course, on Sunday. We'll be doing the second week of 0 Hour. We had a great turnout last night. Thanks, everybody, for being there. That was there for that. And we'll be talking more news throughout the week. Doesn't look like this is going to be as big of a week as last week. We had 3 trailers last week and all kinds of announcements for things and crazy stuff. So anyway, kind of a impromptu live show tomorrow night about the Civil War comic event, and more awesome, fun stuff coming your way this week. Thanks again for watching. We sure appreciate you. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm the Curious Soul.
Saying good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.